Hello, Freedom Nation. It's Jeff here once again with another episode of the Freedom Nation podcast. And on today, I've got Anthony Franco from the How to Founder podcast. So it's always fun interviewing another podcaster, and we'll have a good time today talking a little bit about what he's working on and how he helps other founders. So stay tuned. We'll be right back on in just a second.
All in you. Everything you're looking for, it's all in you. You gotta believe that it's all in you. Everything you're searching for, it's all in.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show today. I've got Anthony Franco on. Anthony, how are you doing, my friend?
Good. Thanks for
Happy
having me.
New Year. Glad to have you on here. You are the first guest of the new year. So
Awesome. Excited to chat
Perfect.
and share.
Well, let's get started like we always do with your story. So tell us your story. How'd you get from where you are or where you were to how you got to today?
Yeah. So I am a serial entrepreneur. Okay. I've started and sold 6 companies, 2 to public companies. How did I get started in entrepreneurship? I hated having a boss, and I was a terrible employee. So you combine those two things, and I really didn't have a choice. I started as an entrepreneur. I don't count this in one of my exits, but I started a little graphic design firm out of my apartment and printed screens for a local t-shirt shop, and just kind of caught the bug and never let up.
Nice. Very cool. So, what businesses have you been in over the years that you bought and sold and all that kind of good stuff?
I've never bought a business. I'm the start from scratch, bootstrap.
Brother from another mother here, but I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I just people talk about, oh yeah, you can go buy a business and all that, and I'm like, well, I can create my own problems. I don't need to buy somebody else's problems.
There's something to be said for buying businesses too, though. But I'm kind of a nerd. So I barely graduated high school because I spent all my time in the computer lab teaching myself how to program. Yeah. And so the first business was a services business that I built software for folks. And then I built a marketing, I co-founded a marketing automation product with a couple folks, and a couple other technology companies, services companies. And then I've also started a manufacturing company, a CPG company. I'm eclectic. Okay. So I don't stick with the same thing. I like to try something new every time I go out.
I like it. So let's talk a little bit about that process of starting a business. What do you think? You've done it multiple times. So what do you think is what attributed to your success, let's say, of being able to build a business and then exit from that business?
It's funny when you say success. I don't. So entrepreneurship is a series of failures followed by a couple of wins, if you're doing it right. So I don't identify with success as much as I identify with embracing failure as a part of your life from now and until forever. Yeah. I think that's the mindset going into entrepreneurship. First of all, there's a lot of folks, there's the dreamers that always say they want to be an entrepreneur, and to their credit, never do it because it's not an easy life. It's a lonely life typically. And then there's the ones that get that talk about their idea and guard their idea. Like it's like the idea is the golden part, right? It's the golden egg. In reality, entrepreneurship is just about doing the next best thing and not thinking about stuff, not having a great idea, not innovating an idea, but it's maybe innovating on how you bring something to market or how you on what that product, how you build it, how you grow it. it's much more about your ability to do that than coming up with a great idea. So I just look at how I'm obsessed with how is this next thing? What's my next problem? What's the next problem I need to solve? And then solving it. It's just day by day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then, eventually you get to that point where you're like, okay, now we're ready to move on to the next phase of life. What was the sale like? Because that's what everybody dreams of is, I want to build a business and I want to sell it. What was that like for you?
Yeah. And I'm going to push back on you a little bit because I do know entrepreneurs that they're building a legacy business that they want to hand it off to their kids. Right. So a lot of entrepreneurs, I certainly didn't go into it with an exit in mind. Any of my ventures, I went into it because I wanted to. I was attracted to a certain kind of problem, and I wanted to just go solve and see what I could do to solve that problem. Okay. But there is a point, and this is a very personal decision where you look at something and you're like, it's time for me to leave. I've either lost my passion or I've taken it as far as I can go, or, life circumstances change and you're like, okay, it's time to exit. And, the biggest company I exited was 150 folks. So it was a fairly large organization. Yeah. And so we went through the traditional M&A process where we quote, went to market and, even hired a broker, and built the pitch deck. It's kind of like you're launching your exit.
Right? Much the same steps you do when you're trying to get funding at the beginning.
Exactly right. Yeah. Or just starting your business and trying to convince a customer to buy your product. Now you're trying to convince a customer to buy your company. So it's the same kind of skill set. And it's bittersweet. Like there is something about letting a thing go that you built from the ground up. It's difficult, but it's also kind of great. It's liberating because now you're like, okay, what's the next problem I get to go tackle?
Well, and I mean, for me, it was that same way. My partner and I had grown a highly successful business, and I just kind of fell out of love with it. At some point there, and I think I've written a bunch of books in the last year, and I think one of them coming up this year is going to be how to piss off your partner and get him to buy you out of your business. It just really, it got to the point where we were going two different directions and it wasn't going to work anymore, and I think it's the way a marriage goes in a lot of cases. I've really never had what I would consider a successful partnership besides with my wife. They've always found some way of falling apart in the business world. So, I think it's very much that. And I agree with you. It is kind of bittersweet because you've spent the time building this business and all of a sudden now you're not there, but it was for me liberating. It helped to create Freedom Day to what it is today. It helped me to really kind of redirect myself along the lines of what I was doing. And it kind of forced me, I don't know if it was the same for you, kind of forced me to go, okay, well, what do you want to be when you grow up?
I don't want to grow up. So yeah.
No, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So let's talk a little bit about the podcast now. So you somewhere out there started a podcast. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. So it's relative. I've probably had a couple of more than a half a dozen fits and starts on podcasts, just trying to figure out who do I want to talk to? At first I was trying to be this pompous know-it-all jackass, and disseminate my knowledge to people. And it wasn't authentic and it failed miserably. Now I've actually partnered with a buddy of mine, Chris, and Chris and I just love let me back up. I don't have any hobbies. I don't have, I don't golf. I don't fish. I tell people I love tennis just to make me seem more rounded. But in reality, my hobby is entrepreneurship. Yeah. And if I could just be around other entrepreneurs for the rest of my life, I'd be happy. So I've been really engaged in the entrepreneurial community here in Colorado. I love founders. I love the energy that you get from being around founders. And Chris started a very large, not 12,000 member founder community in Colorado.
Cool.
And I came to him and I said, why don't we do a look? I want to make entrepreneurship less lonely and less fraught with like figuring stuff out for the first time when you hit it, right? So you're confronted with a problem, you've never seen it before, and you have to figure it out. Well, I want to make that a little bit easier. So I want to write a reference manual for founders, but I don't want to write. So let's do it as a podcast.
Perfect.
He's like, I'm in. So we basically pick a subject. To this morning, we just recorded an episode, a great one about how do you incorporate mindfulness with leadership.
Okay.
But it's stuff like that. But it's also like how to read a P&L, how to read a balance sheet. What do you do when an employee steals from you? So it's very tactical, deep on one topic. And sometimes it's just me and Chris, and sometimes we have a guest, and we just kind of dive deep on entrepreneurial topics. And it's called How to Founder, and we're just having a blast with it.
So you're on all the major podcast channels, I'm assuming, correct?
Yeah, if you want to follow us, would be great. Just go to howtofounder.com.
Perfect.
And then the links to all we stream live on YouTube and LinkedIn, but we're available on all the major platforms too.
Perfect. So let's talk a little bit about your, kind of the direction you see that taking you. Because at this point, you're really not using it as a vehicle to get business or something like that. Where do you see that kind of taking you as you go here? What's the future of How to Founder?
I don't know. We started it with a goal to write a book, right? So eventually, I want to write a book. We do want to take the podcast and write a book from it. But it's the first thing that I've done. I do a little bit of consulting for entrepreneurs, startups, and I'm also a business broker. So I help companies exit. Okay. That's kind of what I do for my day job, is just a bunch of different little things. But the podcast is really just kind of, give back is not the right word, because I think we want to go big. So I think we're planning on, building a big audience and then maybe monetizing that, because I'm a capitalist, but it's just kind of just helping and lead with service, right?
Well, but so that's what makes a successful podcast. Going into it from day one with this, I'm going to monetize this and I'm going to make money from a podcast. You're going to fail miserably.
Don't do it for that. Don't. By the way, don't go into entrepreneurship if that's
your goal. Well, exactly. Yeah, but especially if you're going to be doing anything like this, you just can't go into it with the attitude that I'm going to make money at this and everything else. Yes, I do make money from what I do, but a lot of times it's clients coming to me as a result of listening to what I do, consuming other content that I have, and then they realize, hey, you're the only guy I know that does what you do. So you're the one I know and I can come to and I trust at that point. So, I think that's the cool part about podcasting. The beauty of podcasting is it's kind of easy and cheap to get started, right?
It is easy. It's time consuming. What really it comes down to, I just like Chris, my co-host, and we just have a good time with it. And if it becomes something great.
Hello, Freedom Nation. It's Jeff here once again with another episode of the Freedom Nation podcast. And on today, I've got Anthony Franco from the How to Founder podcast. So it's always fun interviewing another podcaster, and we'll have a good time today talking a little bit about what he's working on and how he helps other founders. So stay tuned. We'll be right back on in just a second. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show today. Yeah. I've got Anthony Franco on. Anthony, how are you doing, my friend? Happy New Year. Glad to have you on here. You are the first guest of the new year. So.
Yeah, exactly right. That's exactly how I feel about it.
Perfect. Well, let's get started like we always do with your story. So tell us your story. How did you get from where you are or where you were to how you got to today? Okay.
Yeah, we actually talked about this on Monday, yesterday. The episode is called "Ideas Are Easy, Execution is Hard," and so for people thinking about starting out, the first thing that you need to be willing to do is be wrong. So if you have an idea, get it to a point where you can start sharing the idea.
Nice. Very cool.
And seeking
so
input
what businesses
for whether or
have
not
you
the
been
idea is
in
bad or
over the
good.
years
Now,
that you
somebody,
bought
if
and
you
sold
get
and all
10
that kind of
people
good
to
stuff?
tell you that it's a bad idea, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad idea. You're just gathering data about, one, how you communicate the idea, and two, who is
brother
your
from
audience?
another
You
mother
might be
here, but
communicating to
I'm the
wrong
same way.
folks.
I just
So the first step
people
is be
talk about,
very
oh yeah, you can go
playful
buy a
with that
business and
idea
all that. And I'm
and
like,
the
well,
brand and how
I can create
who
my
you're
own
gonna talk
problems.
to,
I
who
don't
your
need to buy
audience
somebody
is.
else's
The next step
problems.
is now you got to get beyond somebody's like telling you your idea is good. You have to kind of prove that your idea is good. The lowest hanging fruit is what they call a lead magnet, where you just put your idea on the web and see if people are willing to give you their email address to learn more. The next critical step is will somebody open their wallet for it? So these are bite-sized chunks, right? The first thing is who do I talk to? And you just talk to a bunch of people and figure that out. The next is, can I get their information? Can I get them to give me something? The third is, can I get them to give me money? The fourth is, can I get them to give me money and do it in a way that it costs me less money to get their money than their money they're giving me?
I like it.
Right?
I like it.
Can you make it profitable?
And
the next step is, can you
let's talk a
scale
little bit about that
and
process
scale
of
that
starting a
optional,
business.
by the way.
What do you think? You've done it multiple times. So what do you think
started? Put it
is
in the universe
what
that you're
attributed
doing
to your
this,
success? Let's say of being able to
things.
build a
One,
business
you get feedback
and then exit
you're
from
gonna
that
make your
business.
idea better. Two, when you put something in the universe, you're kind of putting your name on it and saying, I'm going to do this. That helps you figure out what the next best step is.
Yeah.
So you're the guy that made money on co-working spaces. Oh, what a great story. What a great story. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm interested.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then, eventually you get to that point where you're like, okay, now we're ready to move on to the next phase of life. What was the sale like? Because that's what everybody dreams of is, I want to build a business and I want to sell it. What was that like for you?
Yeah, you've got it.
Okay.
It is a common stereotype that's true that everybody has a great idea. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. The only difference is taking that first step and then the next one, mentally committing to the fact that you're going to do something and then going and doing it. Yeah.
Okay.
You will get kicked in the face. It's fine not to do it. It's perfectly fine not to take that first step.
Yeah.
And just imagine and dream. That's fine. But the only difference between that and an entrepreneur is actually going out and doing it. Yeah. Yeah, you don't do it to feed your ego.
Yeah.
That is not why you become an entrepreneur. It's the opposite.
Okay. Okay.
You're signing up for doing hard stuff. Yeah, only survival. Yeah. Exactly right.
Yeah, much
exactly
the
right.
same steps you do when
eat
you're
what
trying
you
to get
kill,
funding
and
at the
that's it.
beginning.
That's the only that's
Yeah.
entrepreneurship. Yep. It's just how to founder, HOWTO founder.com.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, for me, it was that same way. You know,
Okay.
I mean, my partner and I had
Yep.
grown a highly successful business, and I just kind of fell out of love with it. You know, at some point there, and you know, I think I've written a bunch of books in the last year, and I think one of them coming up this
So
year is going to be how to piss off your
it
partner and get
depends.
him to buy you out
If
of your
it's me now,
business.
right?
You
So
know,
if
I
it's
mean,
me
it
now, I
just
gotta feed my
really
family.
it got to the point where we were going
Yeah.
two different directions,
I have
and
to
it
feed my
wasn't
family.
going to
I
work
started
anymore.
a local services
You know, and I
business.
think it's the way a
Window
marriage
wash-
goes
I
in a
think
lot
the
of
thing I would
cases.
start is
I've
a
really
window
never
washing
had
business.
what I would
Um,
consider a
you buy a
successful
ladder and
partnership
you put
besides
up a
with
mini
my wife.
website. You don't even need to put up a website.
You
You
know,
buy
they've
a
always
ladder
found
and
some way of
some
falling
cleaning
apart in the
equipment
business
and
world.
flyers,
So,
and you just go out and
you know,
start
I think
servicing homes.
it's
I think
very
there's a
much
lot.
that,
If
and
you're
I
if you're
agree with you. It is kind of
hungry
bittersweet because
and really need
you've
money
spent the time
fast,
building this
services
business,
businesses is the way to go.
and all of a sudden now you're not there. But it was, for me, liberating. It helped to create Freedom Day to what it is today. It helped me to really kind of redirect myself along the lines of what I was doing. And it kind of forced me, I don't know if it was the same for you, kind of forced me to go, okay,
Yeah.
well, what do you want to be when you grow up? No, I don't want to do that. Well, cool.
You can build a really great life.
So let's
on
talk a little bit
a
about the
local
podcast
services
now.
business.
So
Lawn care,
you somewhere out there started a
lawn
podcast.
care is
Tell
an
us a little
obvious
bit about
one.
that
Window
journey.
cleaning is one. Pest control. If you have a mechanical, background, HVAC is really great. So there's all kinds of different
Okay.
Ways to start a business, but it's a hustle. It's door to door. At that point, it's door to door. Yeah. The biggest business mistake I ever made. Thankfully, I haven't made any really big ones. I've made a whole lot of little ones, and it always comes down to trying to stick out with somebody that's in the wrong spot. Like a hire that I've made that I really believed in, and I'm trying to make them work, and they're just not working, and trying to make compromises on myself in order to make them fit in.
Cool.
So, this is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even put it as turkeys, right? What's the book that talks about putting the wrong person on the bus? It's them having them in the right seat. Everybody can bring value, right? Everybody can bring value.
Perfect.
They're in the wrong chair, and maybe the chair that they're good at, you don't even have that chair in your company. And recognizing, like, I love this person, but I don't have a spot for them, or we can't get along, and one of us has to go. I'm not going. So it's got to be one of us. I'm not going. So sorry. But yeah, so I've held on to those people for too long. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're on all the major podcast channels, I'm assuming, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, exactly right.
Perfect. So let's talk a little
the
bit
book
about
that
your,
really, so I'm reading one
kind
now,
of the direction
The Molecule
you
of
see
More.
that
I'm
taking you.
not
Because
through
I
it,
mean,
but
at
it's an
this
excellent
point,
book.
you're really not
It's
using it
it's
as a
about
vehicle
dopamine
to
and
get
how your
business
brain
or something
so,
like
but the
that.
book
Where
that
do
I
you see
recommend
that
to
kind
all
of taking you as
entrepreneurs
you go here?
is Strengths
What's the
Finder.
future of How to Founder?
I love that book because it really kind of positions you, and you don't have to be good at everything. Focus on your strengths and hire around your weaknesses. And I just think it's a really easy read. It's a little test. It's phenomenal in how you position, how it changes your
Sure.
mindset on what you need to be good at and what you need to be hiring for. It's fantastic.
Okay.
It's a super easy read. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it's changed. So today it's ChatGPT. Um, but I don't think I'm unique there, right? Yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah, and I'm switching
Yeah.
to this tool called OneReach that is like ChatGPT on
Yep.
steroids.
Well, but I mean,
But the
that's
tool
what
that
makes a
the tool
successful
that
podcast. You know,
I learned
going
Adobe
into it
Creative
from day
Suite like
one
30
with
years
this,
ago.
I'm going to
Back when
monetize
like
this and I'm going
Photoshop
to make
1 or
money
2 or
from a
something like that 30
podcast.
years ago, but
You're going to
gist.
fail
It's been a
miserably.
while.
Yeah.
And I lean on that
Yeah. Well, exactly.
skill
Yeah.
set
But especially
for
if you're going to be
all
doing
kinds
anything
of
like
things.
this, you
So
just
I
can't
would,
go
so
into it with the
everybody's learning
attitude that, oh, I'm going to
ChatGPT.
make money at this and
I
everything else.
would
Yes,
recommend going to
I
learn
do make
a
money from what I do, but a lot of
skilled
times
based a
it's
software that you need a
clients
skill to
coming to
learn.
me as a result of
Like Adobe
listening to what I
Illustrator is my
do,
go-to.
consuming other content that I have,
Or a
and then
3D, a
they
piece of 3D
realize,
software, a piece
hey,
of CAD software,
you're the only
something where
guy I know that
you
does what you do.
kind of have to become an
So
engineer.
you're the one I know and
That
I can come to and I
the reason why I
trust
like
at
Creative
that
Suite
point.
is
So,
I'm an
I think that's
entrepreneur.
the
Every
cool part
entrepreneur is
about
building a brand. I can
podcasting. I
kind of
mean,
build my
the
own
beauty of
brand and play with
podcasting
brands
is
at
it's kind of
nausea,
easy and cheap to get
by
started, right?
being creative. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
an accelerant for me. But go learn something. It's a skills based piece of software.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I honestly, you're in the same boat as I am. The other podcast I
Prompt
do
engineering
called The Sense
absolutely
of
is a skill.
Things
Yes.
is my friend Ron and I. I mean, we're both, we have our own individual financial practices, but we just get together and bullshit really for an hour a week. And I love the guy like a brother, so it's like it's my opportunity to talk to Ron every week, and everybody else just gets to listen into our conversation a lot of times, and our shared love of movies and everything else just kind of all falls in there with a few little bits of market information and economics.
Exactly. I mean, ChatGPT is great, but I mean, the limit is pretty
Yeah.
obvious when you ask it something
So
like,
if
"How many
you
R's are
were
in
sitting
strawberry?"
there,
And
let's
you're
say
like,
you're
"Wait a
sitting in
minute.
a
Who am I
cubicle
talking to?"
like some of our audience is. I know it. I saw you shiver.
Yeah.
And they're looking at, I need to get started somehow. I need to get out there.
Yeah.
I think I want to start my own business. Maybe I want to start a podcast, a blog, or whatever. What would you tell them about that first step? What do they need to do first?
I don't think I struggle with that word because
Okay.
look, I think you should always be answering to somebody. I think trying to achieve individual freedom means you're not living a life of service. So I think it's freedom is being able to serve who you want to serve. And so, living by your own values and being able to serve who you want to serve. That would be my definition of freedom. Okay. So LinkedIn, my handle is my name here at Anthony Franco or howtofounder.com. You can get me there too.
Huh. Hmm.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, Jeff. Great podcast.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.